Now, how does this work? Well, the way that God designed your body is you have 24 movable vertebrae that surround and protect your spinal cord and your spinal nerves. As long as your vertebrae are in the correct position, there's no pressure on the cord or the nerve. Now, when these vertebrae shift out of position, now what do we just do, right? Can you see that? We're putting pressure on that nerve. What if that nerve is the nerve going to your heart? Well, it's not going to work correctly. So let me ask you, when was the last time that you checked to have an x-ray to see if your bones out of position in your neck could be pinching the nerve of your heart, causing your high blood pressure? I don't know. That's what we're going to look at. Now, there's a couple of things that we need to know. What normal is your spine is supposed to be straight from front to back, and from the side we actually need these 3 curves in your spine. Specifically, we need this curve in the neck because that is where your spinal cord sits. Now watch this. Okay? If you're facing this way, if your neck is in the right position, then your spinal cord back here has no stretches or tension on your spinal cord. That is normal. The problem is when we injure our neck, whiplash, sports injury, too much time on the car, too much time watching TV, or too much time on your cell phone, you wind up stretching your spinal cord. What that does is it winds up stretching it and thinning it out, specifically in the middle. Research shows, you ready for this? When your neck goes from here to here, what that does is stretches your spinal cord 2.5 inches. It's a big deal. And when your spinal cord gets stretched 2.5 inches, research shows that your life expectancy, you ready for this, drops to 63 years old. That is a big deal. I'm going to tell you right now. I mean, you go to your doctor, you get your physical, you get your blood pressure checked, maybe your cholesterol. But do you know that if they would just shoot this simple x-ray, they could determine more of how long you're going to live based on this? Now let me explain how the mechanics of the spine are supposed to work. First and foremost, from front to back, you need to be perfectly straight. From the side, we actually need these 3 curves in our spine. Specifically, we need this curve in the neck because that's where you're going to get the shock absorber every time you walk. So every time you walk, spring, 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 that's normal. The problem is when you get into a whiplash and you straighten and lose the curve in your neck every time you walk, jam, jam, jam. That's actually what causes arthritis and degeneration. Now, between each one of the vertebrae in your spine, there's actually a little ligament, piece of cartilage, that we call a disc. A lot of people think the disc is actually really weak because you hear of herniated discs and bulged discs, but the reality is that they're very, very strong. Those discs act as shock absorbers as long as the vertebrae are in the right position. As a matter of fact, the research shows that when your spine's in the right position, you can compress the spine so hard that you will explode the bone before you explode the disc. So your discs are incredibly strong. The problem is when the vertebrae shift out of position, now you're putting abnormal load on that disc, and you can bend over to pick up a sock and blow out your back. The number one thing that holds our bones in position and protects our disc is actually our ligaments. How this works is actually a very thick ligament in the back part of your vertebra called your posterior longitudinal ligament. That ligament's actually basically like a thick piece of duct tape. And that ligament's job is to keep your vertebra from shifting forward. Now I'm going to use this little piece of plastic to demonstrate what this means. So when your vertebra in the right position and your ligament is stable, what that ligament does is it allows your vertebra to bend and twist and move and stay in the right position. The problem is when you get a whiplash, right? You whiplash your neck, whether that's sports or car accident, maybe it's playing on your computer, watching too much TV, or driving your car. What happens is you wind up stretching that ligament. Now, when the ligament gets stretched, watch this, these vertebrae can actually shift around and they wind up grinding the disc. That's actually what causes arthritis. Now let me show you what that looks like on x-ray when we stretch and tear our ligaments. This is going to be an improper abnormal neck, and that ligament is going to be coming down the back part of that vertebra, and if they've had a whiplash, it's going to stretch it, just like that. And that's where we're going to have that instability. The problem is right here, when you get that instability with that torn or stretched ligament, what your vertebrae do is they actually wind up developing arthritis. And you're going to start to see little spikes form on the front part of those vertebrae, and that's your body actually laying down more bone to try to restabilize where that ligament has been torn. When your body lays down more bone, we call that, you ready? arthritis. And it's very predictable. Wherever you have a stretched ligament, you're going to have arthritis, and that is the cause of arthritis. So the number one thing that I can do as a chiropractor is to restabilize your spine. Because as long as your ligaments are stable and allowing your vertebra to pivot around that one position and point, you're not going to be developing arthritis. That means no disc bulges, no herniations. When you walk, there's no jamming of your vertebra or pinching of your nerves. So what we're trying to do is see your ligaments heal. Now what that looks like on x-ray, you would think it would look just like getting your spine back perfect, but that's not usually what we see. Well, generally we'll see on x-ray these vertebrae will line up so that we know that that ligament is now healed because there's no separation in the bones. Now, why that's such a big deal is right here, these are the nerves that go to the thyroid. Down here, the nerves that go to the heart. And up here are the nerves that cause headache problems. So this is really what separates our corrective process here at Well, because we're not just focused on moving your vertebra, but restabilizing your muscles, ligaments, your tendons.